Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. Yankees lose 2 of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore. So, a division series loss, um, not what you're looking for. And, the middle game, the Yankees went absolutely ballistic offensively. Another one of those, it was similar to the Nestor Cortez second game of the season against the Brewers, where they went back to back to back to start the game and actually had 4 home runs in the first 5 batters. Total rout. And Carlos Rodon was great, but games 1 and 3, both of them were fairly similar. Not exact, but Will Warren and Carlos Carrasco did not give the Yankees a nearly good enough outing. It's not even the lack of length they provided, right? Like, that's one thing. Just weren't very good. And they put the Yankees in a position where it was going to be tough to win. That said, the offense wasn't fantastic in games 1 and 3 either by any stretch of the imagination, despite the fact that Aaron Judge just unbelievable. Like, it's hard not to talk about that. He leaves the series batting 427, which is nuts. I mean, the Yankees are 31 games into the season. He's batting 427 with a 1282 OPS. It's truly insane. Um, but look, it's not as if the Yankees got swept, but I didn't want to give Baltimore life, and you kind of have done that. Because look, when it's all said and done, Baltimore could very easily be a team that is in competition for the American League East. And right now they're 12-18, so still a little bit away, but not that far. I mean, again, at this point in the season, they're 5 points back, 5 points, 5 games back on the loss side of the Yankees. So would have liked to won 2 of 3. I really do value these AL East series. And I think you have to, especially looking at the American League, which is fairly weak as a whole. But, there is a definite opportunity for the Yankees to win this division. And the better chance of doing that is doing well in the head-to-head matchups. They did win 3 of 4 at Tampa. They did win 2 of 3 home against Toronto, and this was a very winnable series that they did not win. And the frustrating thing is that they lost by 1 in games 1 and 3, and they won, I believe the final score was 15-3 in game 2. That's how it works, right? It doesn't matter how much you win by or lose by. It's all the same end result, a win or a loss, all created equally, or all counting equally, I guess I should say. But um, as far as this series is concerned, um, don't believe there were any transactions made um, within this series, but the one thing that's noteworthy for sure is the Jazz Chisholm Jr. in game 2, early in game 2, uh, suffers a sore oblique, and there's a chance that he doesn't go on the injured list. I tend to think he will. They kind of played a man short in the last game of the series where Chisholm was on the bench. He wasn't going to come in. Um, he seems to feel fine about it. The one thing that tips me off, it's 2 things. Oblique injuries tend to be injured list situations. That's just the way that it tends to go. Also, last year, I remember Jazz was extremely I wish I could remember what the injury was, but he was extremely optimistic, thinking, okay, I think it might have been like a hand type injury. I think he got hurt sliding. It was against the White Sox. I'm now remembering. And I think it was a play at the plate where he hurt maybe his hand or his wrist. And it ended up being a minimum stay, which he ended up going on the IL. I think what happens again here is this is probably an IL stay that is close to maybe a 10-day minimum. Maybe 2 weeks maximum if all goes well. So we'll see, but they have not made that determination yet. But that is something that's going to happen. Look, Jazz was struggling, so hopefully in some ways this can be a reset for him, and maybe it ends up kind of being a blessing in disguise to maybe just reset and get going. But let's just go right into this series. Um, Game 1 is frustrating because of the fact that you have Orioles starter Tomoyaki Sugano, who had the lowest K rate coming into this game, and that how that's determined is that's a minimum amount of innings. So he clearly pitched the minimum amount of innings for this stat, and his K rate was extremely low. He came into this game with, I think, 20 innings pitched and only 9 strikeouts, which is insane. He ends up in this game, his stat line ends up being 5 innings, 5 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Really good outing for him. And it's not as if he had been pitching so badly going to this, but again, like for him to put that up is not ideal. And then for the Yankees, Will Warren, he picks up his actually, it's ironic that Will Warren, who's had certainly some outings that weren't very good, this is his first loss of the season. So he drops the 1-1. He goes 3 and a thirds innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Not great. And he showed some signs and some stick to itiveness early on, as far in the first inning, as he got into some trouble, got out of it. And then it fell apart on him a little bit in the second, and then more so in the third, to the point where the Yankees were down 4-0. So we've seen that a lot, like where the Yankees have had this style of loss. I think back to the Cleveland, like that first Cleveland game where they go down early and they do kind of fight back a little bit, but it's too little too late. There's been a few of those. And then you also have losses more similar to game 3, where they take the early lead, they lose it. There's just too many close losses, and some of them worse than others, right? Like these losses aren't ones that you're going to look back on. They aren't, right? Like the bad Devin Williams ones will be. There's some other ones as well that were like ones you shouldn't have lost. These don't fall in that category, but again, like to me, Yankee record should be better than 18 and 13. And it's not the end of the world. That's a solid, like, if you prorate that, it's a pretty solid record, honestly. But I feel like they've let some games slip. Um, and so that's kind of where you are at this point. But um, for the Yankee lineup in this game, the odd man out was Ben Rice. So that would mean that Dominguez was actually DHing in this one. And you got to remember, they had the doubleheader the day before, and Rice played both games um, in that one. So that plays into a little bit. But it was Grisham leading off. And now it does seem as if Grisham has been a bit of a fixture versus righties or lefties in the top of that line. That seems to be a change that they're sticking with. And I don't have a problem with it. I mean, Grisham has been, pretty, putting up good at bats, been really productive. Maybe not at the same rate that he had been, but like still doing pretty well. And so I'm good with that. So Grisham leading off in this one, Judge batting second, Bellinger, Goldschmidt, Chisholm Jr., Volpe, Wells, Dominguez, and Peraza. So an interesting situation where Peraza gets the start again, as Waldo played both games the day before. I'm guessing that maybe Sagano had reverse splits, and that's why they went with the righty Peraza. But a fairly normalish looking lineup, other than the fact that, you have the Dominguez in the DH spot, but you don't see too often. Usually it's Rice or Judge that fills that spot. But Will Warren, like I said, he gets out of that initial jam. And what's unfortunate too, first inning, Yankees had an opportunity, one of their best ones of the game, I might add. Early, bases loaded spot with 2 out, and Volpe grounds out. Also, Goldschmidt strikes out. The reason why I bring that up is Goldschmidt, who actually, again, another solid series for Goldschmidt, I believe on the whole. I think the stats would bear that out. Had a couple of situations where he could have gotten some things done and struck out. So have to mention that. So they don't score there. In the bottom of the first, it's a second and third no-out jam that Warren gets out of, which was nice, and a couple of strikeouts to boot. But the bottom of the second, it's a 2-out rally. Jackson Holiday single, then Ramon Laureano RBI double. Not well played by Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham does not take a great route to the ball. To me, this was catchable. And I think with Grisham, I want to see him be a little bit more sound out there. I think he probably grades out as one of the better center fielders, but I don't know. I'm not sure if other fans feel this way, but I just feel like there's just something that's missing. And I know like his style of play out there can be a bit nonchalant, to say the least. And this one just kind of got a wrong read on it. And so the Orioles take a 1-0 lead. Um, in the third inning is where Goldschmidt has first and third 1 out and strikes out, and then Chisholm strikes out. So this was a bad night for Jazz. He goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. So that then leads into him getting hurt in game 2. But for Jazz, just so many strikeouts. It's not great. Like I said, hopefully him sitting out will be good. Bottom of the third, walks kill you. And that comes into play later in the series as well. Henderson and Rushman walk, and then Ryan O'Hearn 3-run homer. 5th homer of the year makes it 4-0 Orioles. And the Yankees were unable to recover. They make it interesting, but that was all that, that was it right there. So Will Warren is replaced by um, Ryan Yarborough, who does a very nice job. Ryan Yarborough ends up going 3 2/3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, one walk, and 3 strikeouts. So Yarborough, you take away a couple, one or two really poor outings. He's actually done a very nice job in this role. And I do wonder if at some point Yarborough is considered to maybe start a game or two, and kind of really utilize him in different spots. Because I think, I don't know, if you have a lineup that's lefty heavy to start, maybe you go Yarborough. Now, the thing with that is if Yarborough is announced as the starter, then a team well, the thing is, not every team has the ability to do it, right? If you have a team where your best hitters are lefties and you're going to have them up there regardless, Yarborough could be a guy to consider as starting a game. Um, but he really settled this thing down and gave the Yankees an opportunity to win. He really did. And especially in that fourth inning, he comes into a tough spot where there was a runner that was already on third. Um, and he was able to strand that runner there with one out at the time. Fifth inning, Paul Goldschmidt's robbed of a home run. So that's unfortunate where he strikes at the first two at bats. Goldschmidt robbed of a homer. It would have been a 2-run shot in the fifth, but Cedric Mullins does a nice job of tracking it down. And there you go. Sagano, like I said, goes 5 strong. Keegan Aiken does a nice job for Baltimore in the sixth and part of the seventh. And in the seventh is actually when the Yankees get their first run. It's off of Yenier Cano, whereas Waldo Cabrera pinch hits for Peraza. Gets a single, an infield single, advances to second on an error. Grisham singles, and so first and third, one out, and Judge beats out the double play possibility. An RBI ground out makes it 4-1. We move to the seventh and eighth, where Gregory Soto comes in, the lefty, in the eighth inning. Goldschmidt single, moves to second on a wild pitch, Chisholm with a strikeout. Anthony Volpe RBI double, Austin Wells RBI double. So this is the point where the chance is there for the Yankees. Volpe and Wells with RBI doubles. But where it goes wrong, and this is a real weak spot of the lineup, is runner on second, one out, tying runs on second, lefty's up, pitching for Baltimore, and Dominguez strikes out as a righty, and as Waldo grounds out as a righty. Dominguez as a right-handed hitter is brutal, really, really bad, to the point where I honestly wouldn't be, if this continues this whole season, I wouldn't be shocked if he becomes a full-time left-handed hitter come next season. You don't want to make that switch during the season, and nor would I even want that. But I really do think you have to think long and hard about that. It's so bad. And he's really very good as a lefty. So that is tough, and you don't really have the pinch hitting options to do it. There's a flaw in this lineup, like I've said for a while, where lefty relievers can really attack certain parts of this lineup. And even as Waldo has actually been fairly competent as a righty, but known as a better lefty, he grounds out there. Devin Williams pitches the eighth. It looked pretty good doing so. Not amazing, but pretty good. He actually had a couple of appearances in this series where he's nowhere close to peak Devin Williams. Not that the Yankees have seen that, but it is better than what we've seen out of him in the closers role. And if he can be a contributor in that pen, that's really helpful. I mean, sure, it's not the ninth inning, but you still don't want him to just be a complete bum. And I think that he's going to be in some high leverage situations. There's no question. Like, he is not just someone that's going to be at the bottom of the pecking order, which I thought was possible. Uh, and I almost think that it's actually good news for Luke Weaver's job as a closer. I almost think it's good news, the fact that Devin Williams is like just being entrenched as one of the other guys, like Leiter and Cruz. I almost feel like, you know, in a weird way that is, you know, because I think that if he was in a low leverage spot, they could just keep him there, and then he does well, they can automatically bring him back as the closer. Now, I don't know. We'll see. All speculation. But we go to the ninth inning, and the Yankees go down pretty quietly against Felix Bautista, which happened in game 1 and 3. And that's a big return for Baltimore. He was out all of last season, but he was amazing in 2023. And he gets Christian to pop out, Judge to strike out, and Bellinger to strike out. And the Orioles win 4-3. Game 2, a lot better for the Yankees. Um, an amazing first inning off of Kyle Gibson. And that's the thing. Gibson, he, making his season debut, absolutely shelled. Pretty embarrassing, actually. 3 2/3 innings, 11 hits, 9 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 5 homers. 4 of them in the first inning. 4 of the first 5 batters did it. And Carlos Rodon was excellent. See, that gets a little bit lost in the shuffle. He had a perfect game through 5 innings. He goes 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, improves to 4-3, ERA drops to 3.43. He's really turning things around after a little bit of a rocky situation for a few starts. And look, I still think Rodon, it's you're gonna get some of that sometimes, but gotta give the credit. This has now been what, about 3 starts or so that have been very, very good, where Rodon's giving you at least 6 innings, making easy work of his opponents. So that was good. But the offense is the story here. And the odd man out of the lineup this game was Dominguez. So Grisham leading off in this one, and he starts it out with a homer. He starts it out with a homer. And the interesting thing, too, in this lineup is that you have Rice batting third, Bellinger fifth. So again, as far as the lefty pecking order goes, Bellinger, is um, kind of behind Grisham and Rice, which is deserved based on what they're doing. I like that they're saying, hey, this is not based on pedigree. This is based on what you are doing to earn it. I like that. So the Yankees started out incredibly strong. Trent Grisham homers, his eighth homer of the year. Aaron Judge homers, the opposite field, his ninth homer of the year. And then Ben Rice, his seventh homer of the year. Ben Rice wasn't done either. And then after a Goldschmidt round out, it's Cody Bellinger with his third homer of the year, making 4-0. So again, reminiscent. So off what they did off of Nestor Cortez in the second game of the season, just stuff you don't see to do to, it 3 straight home runs to start the game, a fourth one as well. Amazing. And then the Chisholm injury happens where he actually ironically doubles and advances to third on an error by Laureano, the right fielder, and dives into third. Chisholm was hurt during the at bat. There was no question about it, but he stayed in there and actually had a nice swing where he kind of it was an unlike Jazz swing. But I mean, kind of crazy, dove into third considering that he was in pain. I'm not sure if that aggravated it further, but at that point, he was pulled from the game immediately. And so Oswald Peraza pinch runs for him. Anthony Volpe gets an RBI double to make it 5-0 as well. Then in the second, Ben Rice homers again. So Ben Rice homering in the first and second inning, his eighth homer of the year to give the Yankees a 6-0 lead. Yankees would score more in the fourth off of Gibson, and it would be an RBI single for Goldschmidt and a 2-run single for Oswald Peraza to make it 9-0 Yanks. In the fifth, an RBI single for Goldschmidt makes it 10-0. A 2-run double for Bellinger makes it 12-0. And this was just a total rout by the Yankees. The perfect game ends for Rodon in the sixth. The Orioles get an RBI ground out to make it 12-1. In the top of the seventh, the Yankees get a run to make it 13-1 and a fielder's choice, reaching on an error. Volpe that scores a run. You see a lot of the backups come in just with the nature of the score. They leave Rodon in for the seventh, which was interesting. And Gunnar Henderson, first batter, homers off him. So it doesn't matter as far as the score, but it was interesting. I guess Rodon, because they were having conversations, Rodon and Boone, but they leave him in. Third homer of the year for Gunnar Henderson makes it 13-2. Ian Hamilton pitched a very solid seventh and eighth inning, 2 innings, shutout, no walks, no hits, 3 strikeouts. So Ian Hamilton, another one that's kind of flying under the radar. He's looking better and better as he's returned from injury. In the eighth, RBI single, Pablo Reyes. Top of the ninth, Austin Wells, who was the one guy that hadn't gotten a hit in the starting lineup. And what does he do? He homers to make it 15-2, his fifth homer of the year. And then Tyler Matzik, who hasn't looked great, coming back from injury. I think they're going to give him a chance in a lot of low leverage situations. The Orioles score 1 run off on a sac fly by Ryan Mountcastle, makes it 15-3, and that's your final score. So a very impressive showing all the way around for the Yankees in that game. And now we go to game 3, the rubber game, where the Yankees do lose it in a matchup between Carlos Carrasco and Kate Povich. And Carrasco just wasn't great. 3 1/3 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts. And that's the problem. I mean, it's one thing to get 3 1/3 from both Warren and Carrasco. It's another thing for them to both give up 4 runs. Like that, you could live with a situation where, let's say they went, maybe 4 1/3, 4 2/3, and gave up 2 or 3 runs max, but you're not getting the length and you're giving up the runs. That's a problem. And so I think, Warren's one thing. And I think with him, I see potential. With Carrasco, even though he's thrown in some surprisingly good outings, there's really been 2 or 3 very solid outings from him. For the most part, though, he's someone you don't want in there. And I think it's a matter of when that Carrasco will not be in this rotation anymore. His career is winding down. So the odd man out of this lineup, besides Jazz, who we knew wasn't going to play, Reyes was at second, Peraza at third. It was Bellinger. So Cody Bellinger was not in there against the lefty Povich, and Cade Povich wasn't great, but kind of limited damage as much as he could. 4 2/3, 3 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, with a couple of homers allowed. That was his biggest undoing. Other than that, he did what he could, and the Orioles had there was 6 Oriole relievers in there after Cade Povich. So the Yankees actually took the lead in this one. It was looking like it was going to be another great start for them. Aaron Judge with the 2-run homer in the first inning, 10th homer of the year. Just an insane start to the season for Judge. But bottom of the second, 2-run homer for Ryan Mountcastle, his second homer of the year to tie it up at 2. And then Ramon Arias, he homers as well. His second homer of the year to make it 3-2. So when Carrasco's bad, he's giving up home runs. Like, we've seen that. I think back to the Detroit game and a few others as well. And then a 2-out rally happens, and it's an RBI single for Adley Rutschman to make it 4-2. Then from there, we go to the fourth, where you have a situation where Heston Kierstead steals second on a strikeout by Arias. And on the steal, Pablo Reyes, playing second base, tries to put the tag on Kierstead, but he was unable to do so. And Kierstead gets mad at him. And I'm wondering, to the only thing of fairness I can say to Kierstead, which is very unrelated, is that last year Clay Holmes did hit him in the head. Like, which was a scary situation. It wasn't on purpose by Holmes. It looked like that was last year. Totally different scenario. But like, I feel like that there needs a little bit of context there. But like, here's like, the bench is cleared. It was one of the stranger benches clearing situations you'll find. No punches were thrown. It got a little bit heated. Volpe was kind of just laughing at the situation. But I really think that, cooler heads prevailed, but it did get chippy. It definitely did. And the bench is cleared pretty quickly. So Carlos Carrasco's night was actually done at that moment. Tim Hill comes on and finishes out the inning. And then in the fifth, Paul Goldschmidt, his second homer of the year. So the first home run in a while for Goldschmidt. His first one was against Nestor Cortez, that second game of the year. So it makes it 4-3. Then a bit of bad base running by Judge. I have to mention at the end of the fifth, where he basically gets picked off by the pitcher Sir Anthony Dominguez in a situation that just didn't call for anything like that, and he gets it's a situation where he gets tagged out at second base. So not great there by Judge, but look, he's entitled. So we go to the fifth, and Adley Rutschman and Ryan O'Hearn start out the inning with walks against Tim Hill. And that is a recipe for disaster, especially since Anthony Volpe makes an error on the next play. Now, Ramon Laureano hits a ground ball that could have been a double play, possibly, but it wasn't because Volpe boots it. And so what could have at least been 1 out, maybe 2, turns into base loaded, no out, and Jackson Holliday in a softly hit ground ball to Pablo Reyes. They get an out at second, but the run scores to make it 5-3, and then Fernando Cruz comes on in a tough spot and gets out of the inning because he's just been unbelievably nasty and good. That's a tough run to allow there. Again, Hill with the walks, Volpe with the error leads to that. Then in the sixth, Yankees have a chance to do something. Keegan Aiken, the lefty, comes on, and it's that lane again where it's not great. Pablo Reyes strikes out looking. Jason Dominguez strikes out looking as a righty. Not great, and there isn't much recourse for it, really. You could have pinch hit Bellinger. Not that that would have been that ideal anyway. There was a couple of moves you could have made, but not ones you feel amazing about. And so that was an opportunity squandered. And then Fernando Cruz strikes out the side in the sixth. Cruz, 1 2/3 innings, no hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts, just insane. And then in the seventh, leadoff walk for Peraza. They then bring in the righty Cano, and Aaron Judge, 2-out RBI single to make it 5-4. And then the spot where they had a legit chance, big time. Judge goes to second on a throwing error on a pickoff attempt by Greg Soto, and Ben Rice, lefty, which isn't ideal, but Rice, it looked like he got into one, but it only reached the warning track and right. It went off the end of the bat. The score remains 5-4. Devin Williams comes in the seventh. It wasn't great. There was a walk, But luckily, he gets to strike him out, throw him out, double play. That was huge. So again, for Williams, it's baby steps, but it has looked slightly better. Not amazing, but a little bit better. In the eighth inning, the righty Brian Baker comes on, leadoff walk for Volpe. But unfortunately, they're unable to get that run. They're unable to move him anywhere. Cody Bellinger came in as a pinch hitter for Pablo Reyes and had a pretty bad strikeout. And Dominguez struck out as well. He got ahead in the count. This is as a lefty, and Dominguez struck out. Eighth inning, Mark Leiter Jr. pitches a scoreless eighth, and we go to the ninth, and Felix Bautista does the job again. Puts the Yankees down 1-2-3, and so Aaron Judge leaves this game on deck. That's the unfortunate thing. Peraza, Goldschmidt, and Grisham could not reach to enable that situation. So Yankees lose the series. Now let's do a quick preview of the next series, which is Tampa Bay. So the Yankees have already faced the Rays in Tampa. Now that the Rays will come to Yankee Stadium. And a couple of rematches as far as pitching probables are concerned. If I remember correctly, Ryan Pepio against Max Fried being one of them, where Fried was unbelievably amazing. That was the situation where he lost that no-hitter on the official scoring change. But Pepio versus Fried, game 2 is not a rematch. It'll be Zach Littell versus Clark Schmidt. And then game 3 will be a rematch, I believe, from the first game of 4 in that series. I'm pretty sure Taj Bradley against Will Warren. So Warren will be looking to bounce back after a not so good outing at Baltimore. So 3 righties on the mound for Tampa. Yankees have faced a ton of righty starters. Cade Povich being the only one that wasn't in this last game against Baltimore. But Tampa, as I'm recording this, they're 14-16. They had a really nice series versus the Padres. Now they're kind of hitting the skids a little bit in a series versus the Royals, which isn't done yet. They've lost the first 2, I believe, with 1 more to go. So the fact of the matter is still, though, from top to bottom, I keep on saying the AL East, it's still all close enough. You cannot rule anyone out for sure. And so you got to get the job done in these divisional series. They hope to do that against Tampa Bay after not doing so against Baltimore. They lose 2 of 3 against the Orioles.